Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am the captain of the ship, Captain Stubing. No, Mr. Warren Hayes. It's a joke. How is everybody doing on this fine Wednesday? Look, we are ready to go down this route of more pro wrestling discussion for a couple of hours here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application. Video, audio, both are available. You pick your poison. You consume me in the way you desire the most. Okay. That sounded worse than in my head. But go right ahead and look, if you're on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, of course, a like and a subscription here would be tremendous. So would be 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts or 5-star ratings on Spotify. Those would be absolutely tremendous and will always help grow the show. Big news this week. You're listening to the podcast, so you're like, oh, what is the big news? But it might not be for you, but I started recording live again last night. It was my first dipping the foot back in the water kind of thing. Recording live on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes like I used to do every Tuesday evening. Now I'm back to doing it. Well, at least I did it last night and it went really well. I was a little concerned with the health and whatnot as to how it would go, but it turns out it went primo well, and I'm excited. I'm excited to continue down this path and keep punching out this content and doing the live shows. I missed it tremendously. So there's, you'll hear me talking to chat throughout like I used to. That's very exciting. I'm really happy, and a big shout out to everyone who jumped in, who joined, popped in, said hello, stuck around. It meant a lot to me. It really did. To know that there were people who are still around, even 4 or 5 months with basically barely anything coming out, and my health still being a little up and down. It really did mean a lot. So thank you all very much, and thank you very much for listening and sticking by this old coot talking about pro wrestling. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We've got a pretty big show. Of course, the AEW AEW Double or Nothing 2024 review is going to be the main event of the show. We've also got some thoughts on Becky Lynch's contract, Edge and his injury, and the AEW negotiation stuff as well. Look, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there was some stuff happening live too as we were recording that we sort of touch on as well. So it's a busy show per usual. So let's get right to it. Let's start the weekly wrestling inspection, and thank you for being here. As we set on down this path tonight to talk about pro wrestling, I'm doing this live. For those of you who are listening to this recording later, I'm recording this live. I'm back to doing this live, baby. We're no longer just hanging out, in my dank office recording this, behind the shuttered windows, hiding my shame from the rest of the world. No, I am once again very open with the fact that I'm a pro wrestling fan. So we're back doing live. We've got the live chat going, and Anakin JMT left a super chat. Thank you very much, by the way. I appreciate it tremendously. And he says, how stoked are you for Queen Nia? That is an excellent question. That is an excellent question. Of course, as you probably all know, I do not watch the Saudi shows. I do not report on the Saudi shows because I didn't watch them. I have nothing to offer when it comes to King, Queen of the Ring this year. I didn't watch it. I've heard things, but hearing things, seeing things, and I can't commentate on the matches. I can't tell you if this was a good show. I've got nothing. But we can talk about the events. The events, like Anakin just mentioned, that Nia Jax is Queen of the Ring, and Gunther, our boy Walter, is King of the Ring. Now, Queen Nia being Queen of the Ring is, I don't understand it. I don't get it, because I still think Nia Jax stinks. But if anything, there are people there are people in this company now who are worse than Nia. But nonetheless, look, we're already off track here. This is not what I wanted to start with. As you can tell, I wanted to talk about something else. But we'll cover this base here. We'll get this out of the way. The one thing that I've noticed about Nia Jax winning Queen of the Ring was this outpour of people saying she deserves it. She's been doing the best work of her career. She's been great. That's the word I've seen quite a bit. She's been great, right? Her work has been great. She's been doing great since coming back. Now, I want to say something. I'm asking this sincerely because I've seen a few Nia Jax matches, nonetheless, because I watched the main WWE shows that aren't Saudi shows. So I've seen Royal Rumble. I've seen the Australia show, Elimination Chamber, right? And she's just as ordinary and bland and unexciting as she usually is. Now, is everyone saying that she's having a great run because she hasn't been injuring anyone? Wow. I mean, good for her. Let's start giving out trophies for doing the bare minimum. Let's start doing that. But like outside of that, I am asking you earnestly because I saw these people saying she's been doing great work. She's been doing the best work of her career. I want you, please, to reach out to me and give me links to the great Nia Jax matches that she's been having. No memes, okay? Because I'm being very, very sincere. I'm asking you earnestly. What are these great Nia Jax matches that have been so good that people are like, Nia deserves this? I really want to see them. I forgot to mention, I watched the Jade Nia Jax match from a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, and it stunk. It's like, so again, I do not know what we're looking for. I do not know what these people are seeing. I want to see it then. If she's great, I'm going to give her I want to have the opportunity to be able to say, okay, I truly saw a great Nia Jax match. I doubt that it exists. Because a lot of people sort of, push things forward and, they're like, hey, Nia, they sort of elevate people that they think are good or that they're improving. So I want hop into the Discord. Link is in the description. Send me those links. Find Blue Sky has DMs now. If you're on the Blue Sky, Mr. Warren Hayes is there. Come send me the link. That would be tremendous. Send me the matches, the great Nia Jax matches. I want to see the great Nia Jax matches. That's what I want. And I'm counting on you because personally, I don't think they're out there. I think these are people pretending that she's great, when in reality, she's just the same old Nia Jax, but she's not hurting people anymore. Prove me wrong. And legitimately, I'm not even memeing. I'm not even trying to be cute. I want to see them if they're out there. Send them to me, and I will report back next week. If anyone sends matches, of course. Okay, let's move on to what we had planned, okay? Becky Lynch, you've heard of her. Apparently her WWE contract, this has been a rumor for a bit, but it gathered a lot of steam. It gathered a lot of steam over the past week or so that her contract was expiring and that her last match in WWE before re-signing would be on the May 27 edition of Monday Night Raw. And for all intents and purposes, according to reports, it was indeed her last match that she wrestled under her current WWE contract. Lynch lost to Liv Morgan in a steel cage in the main event of Raw. And it was Lynch's rematch for the Women's World Championship after losing it to Liv at Queen and King of the Ring, King and Queen of the Ring, Creaming and Criminy, Crim. And it has a whole thing to do with Dominic Mysterio, but I don't want to get into that. I really don't. Raw goes off the air. Lynch took some time in the ring to sell her loss. She got thank you Becky chants from the fans. She acknowledged the crowd. She did the kissy hands. And she did a post on social media of her walking out of the building or something to that effect. But Fightful reports that June 1st is the date that Lynch's contract is set to expire. Dave Meltzer reports that it's expected that Lynch will be taking some time off from WWE. And one of Lynch's colleagues told Mike Johnson of PW Torch that Lynch, quote, will return to WWE someday, unquote. The colleague is confident that WWE and Lynch can work out a new deal, quote, especially with her husband Seth Rollins being a full-time wrestler there, but her body and mind could use a break for a while, unquote. So, I think this is all, and I want to be careful because I think I want to say too many things at once. Welcome back to the Mr. Warren Hayes show. I think there's a time where we would have looked at this and just shrugged it off, and go, oh, no, it's work. And because honestly, that's my basic reflex right here. It's a work. From everything I saw and read and looked back on, because, I DVR Raw. I'm not a complete buffoon. I DVR Raw, and then when things happen, I go back and I check it out, see it for myself, They leaned into Becky leaving really, really hard last night. Not just, a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge send off, No, they leaned into it. They were referencing it semi-obliquely, not subtly, obliquely. There's a difference. And she was also, she was including it in storylines and, discussions backstage with other wrestlers. I think this is it. I think there is truth that she is renegotiating her contract. I absolutely 100% buy that that's real. What I don't buy is that she's contemplating leaving WWE. I find it very difficult to believe that she would leave the company and go to AEW, for instance, right? Because that's our first reflex for everything. I find it really hard to believe that she'd do that. Maybe she will. Seeing what Mercedes did, seeing what Naomi did, maybe she's like, maybe she just needs some time off, and they're working while they work out the contract details. She's just gonna take some time off, and it's not as if she's scrapped for money. You know what I mean? It's not as if she's living out of her car or in a rundown RV. And Seth is Seth just re-signed a deal, right? A big money deal. So it's not as if she's going to be scrambling to buy formula for her kid. Is she still maybe is the kid older than that? Not like I'm saying formula, but maybe I don't know. Like I honestly don't know. What school supplies? The kid's not in school yet. Too young. Diapers. The kid has to still be in diapers. What is the parent thing that Becky Lynch could be scrambling for? Diapers, onesies. We have our kids wear a lot of onesies. I don't know. I just find it really hard to believe that with all of this fanfare, that they'd be like, all right, head on out. Walk off into the sunset, and everything sort of comes, and then like in a week next week she shows up on Dynamite. Like it doesn't make sense to me. We've seen weirder things. And I remember having a conversation very close to the one I'm having right now 2 years ago when the rumor that Cody Rhodes was leaving AEW started to spread. And we were all like, that's not going to happen. You know? So I'm being very cautious. Because look, here's the thing. Becky Lynch, okay, let's humor ourselves for a second. Let's just assume that she is negotiating. And okay, here's the thing. Before we get into she's absolutely using this time to negotiate because she's heard that Sasha Banks is currently the highest paid female wrestler in pro wrestling, right? According to all reports. She's heard this. WWE has heard this. Why wouldn't she balk for more money? Why wouldn't she? Why wouldn't she, stay home until WWE is ready to pay her the big bucks? Or threaten to go to AEW? See, this is the thing. And this is something that we've brought up a couple of times here on the show, and it warrants to be brought up again. The best thing about two major league companies where wrestlers can have huge mainstream careers making a lot of money is beneficial. The main attraction is that it is good for the wrestlers because then they can bounce things off of the other company. They can go negotiate with Tony Khan and then come back and say, well, AEW's offered me this. Can you? Yeah. We saw that with Jay White. We saw that with Will Ospreay. We saw that with Kazuchika Okada. We could arguably see that again with Becky Lynch. Maybe not as publicly, but I think it's naive to think that at the very least, Becky Lynch didn't send out any feelers to AEW via her representation or agent, I think it's naive to think that she didn't send out there to say, hey, if I were to come work for you, how much you'd pay, kind of thing. And then goes back to WWE and, well, this is what the other guys are offering. And then the question then becomes, as I was about to get into, what does it make sense for Becky Lynch to go to AEW, right? So let's picture this. What would she have to bring to All Elite Wrestling that would justify, let's say, the enormous salary she would be asking for? Name value, star value. You are taking from, and the fact that you yoinked away one of the company's biggest female stars. I said one of. You will notice I did not say the biggest, but one of, and one which has a deep history with WWE. She's essentially a system kid at this point. We all know the story, right? The clown school, and then going through NXT and the Irish dancing and all this bullshit, and then the steampunk phase, and doing stuff on SmackDown back in the day that got her over when she was not supposed to get over. That was never Becky Lynch getting over with the crowd was never a plan. Let's not forget that. That was never in Vince's grand design. Because no matter how much they tried to bury her, have the audience turn on her, everyone rejected it. They wanted Becky Lynch. Now, Becky Lynch is a tremendous babyface. So, bringing her into AEW, with Lynch being so associated with WWE, would be a nice little feather in the cap of Tony Khan. We'd be like, yeah, I stole one of your names. Legitimately, this is someone you associate with WWE. Someone who for a while was inarguably the top star of the company. Back with the, when they started doing the man stuff, the broken nose and all that shit, she was inarguably the top act of the company for months. So, now that, but the thing here, actually, it's not a so, it's like a but the thing is, and I've said this multiple times on this podcast, let's say out of the 4 horsewomen, Becky Lynch is probably, she's probably the 3rd best worker. Now it's a bit of a toss-up between her and Bayley because Bayley is so injured and whatnot. Mercedes, of course, has always been the best worker of the 4. Always. And Charlotte has always been the worst. But that doesn't mean like, Becky Lynch is suddenly, it's like, oh yes, she's the Akira Hokuto to the Minami Toyota that is no. That is Mercedes Moné. No. She's not even the Dump Matsumoto. She's not the Aja Khan. Like, she was never a great worker. That's never how she connected with the audience. Hang on, let me say that again. She's a good worker, not great, and just sometimes just has glaring holes in her performances. That's just Becky Lynch, and it's fine. People have accepted that. It's all right. Her promos, her charisma, her star power, that's undeniable. She's got all of that. That's fine. And that's what you need to get over in WWE ultimately. And as she gets older, well, the body will not be what it once was. And if at your peak, you were a good but not great wrestler, well, then it all sort of starts to go down, doesn't it? And we've seen in AEW, and I'm going to talk about it a little later when we get to the preview. In AEW, you can get over through your work. Your mic skills can, or lack thereof, can harm you. Thankfully, Becky doesn't have a problem with that. But the work can, or the lack of work can play against you. It can be a detriment. Just like it can get you over, it can stunt your growth. It's 2 different audiences. So Becky in AEW, is an interesting prospect, and I would not be surprised if she ended up for a stint at the very least in AEW, a couple of dates. But I wouldn't bet my money on it. And honestly, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm asking my advisors, and I'm just thinking real hard as to whether or not bringing Becky Lynch just to yoink something away from WWE is worth the effort. Is worth the effort for a wrestler who physically has absolutely passed her prime, but nonetheless has that power, that star power, but has passed her prime physically. Or do I, Tony Khan, instead of doing that, invest in the women that have been building my division? The women that my women's division is what I mean. The women who are there and have been getting themselves over. Look, you want to talk about Becky Lynch not supposed to get herself over? Let's talk about Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale got herself over because of her natural charisma, because she wrestles like nothing, like no one else in the women's division. She got herself over by being unique. But she's not part of the grand scheme. She wasn't anyway. And she still is not, seeing the results of this week, But she is a talent that is crazy over with the crowd, who is a great worker, who is very much in her prime. What do you do with someone like Statlander, who seems to be on the cusp of a career resurgence? What do you do with Jamie Hayter when she comes back? Where's Britt? Why should we invest in these women in the division before bringing someone else in, another woman in, to try and quote unquote fix the division? When I think all the pieces are in place it's not even fixed the division, because I don't think it's broken. I just think it's misused. I don't think it's broken. Broken would mean that nothing's working. But things are working. We're not just focusing on them. You're going to tell me that in 2024, on this day, that AEW World Women's Champion Willow Nightingale sounds alien to you? Sounds like a stretch? No, absolutely not. That would be a champion that AEW fans would get behind. And look, and you still have Athena meandering around back in fucking ROH. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a guy, this is coming from a guy who was head over heels for the man gimmick, for Becky, for the audience refusing to let Becky turn heel, for all the wrenches that she threw into Vince's plans with Charlotte. Legitimately, these are all real things. This is a guy who bought the fucking t-shirt with Becky Lynch bleeding from the nose. Like, this is the shit that I was into. I was completely on board with this incarnation of Becky Lynch and the organic of it. I love Becky Lynch, and I still have a soft spot for her. But I don't think she translates into AEW all that easily. But look, I could be wrong, and maybe all of this conversation was for nothing, a moot conversation, because I still think she's staying. Our boy Adam Copeland is quite unfortunately injured. And that's very much a shame. Of course, you all know that Adam Copeland this weekend at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view on Sunday jumped off the top of the steel cage to do an elbow drop, but landed feet first onto Malachi Black, who was on a table. And he took to social media today, Tuesday, which is when we record this, to post a video revealing that he suffered a broken tibia that will require surgery. Quote, "I've been feeling really good lately. Been having so much fun in the ring, and I got cocky. It is what it is. And I got cocky is, I guess, what it really comes down to. My brain forgets what my body always seems to remember. A little late is that I'm 50 and I need to make better choices. So my body pulled the emergency brake on me the other night, and I ended up fracturing my tibia, which is going to require surgery. Don't know what the time frame on that is yet." That is a bummer. It's a fucking bummer, because I think Copeland's been great in AEW. Legitimately. And you all know this was all going down before before I fell into the void and came back. Copeland, I was very, very weary at Adam Copeland coming in to join AEW. I was not a big fan of his late AEW runs, WWE runs, excuse me. I'll get it straightened out in my head. I was not a fan, and I was not looking forward to it. Little anxious, but he has been doing some of the best work that he's done in years. And it's been super entertaining. I think there's been one or two missteps, which we will get to. So to see him being injured out like this in the midst of a title reign, so on and so, it kind of sucks. I can understand that he's like, man, I'm doing all this cool shit. I'm in the midst of all this great AEW stuff, and I'm doing things back and forth, and it's tremendous, and I'm having such a good time. And he gets swept away in the moment, right? The adrenaline gets to you. I understand. I 100% believe that he's being authentic here, where he's like, I can still do this, and then his body's like, no, you still can't. No, brother, you can't. You're cooked for that. For this kind of stuff. No, aim a little lower, excuse me. So I feel bad for him. I really do. I sincerely do. You guys and gals and non-binary pals know that I'm not a fan of wrestlers getting injured. I want wrestlers to have long, healthy careers. So this kind of shit bums me out. But that was a really stupid way to take that bump, Adam. It was really fucking stupid. Not smart. There were landing on, I don't know. Look, I don't know what he was thinking, and I don't pretend to understand the wrestler brain. But landing on your feet, jumping off of, 10, 15 foot high cage, landing flat on your feet. What the fuck? Of course that was a bad idea. That was a bad idea. What are we even doing? I'm drooling over myself. That's what we're doing. Look, I hope he gets well soon. I think he's going to be missed. I think he was a tremendous addition to the mid card. I think what he was doing was overall very entertaining. I thought his matches were mostly successes. He's a guy who has adapted to the AEW style instead of coming in with his, this is what worked in WWE, this is what's going to work here kind of thing attitude. He's been tremendous. So, it kind of bums me out. So I hope he gets better soon. Chad asks, are we getting a TNT Championship tournament? I would assume yes, but when do you start it? Look, here's what I hope, but this is what I'm expecting. The hope is there's a tournament. Nice little knockout tournament. Just get it out of the way and it's done, right? As opposed to, but we've got the Owen coming up. The Owen's going to start soon because the finals are going to be like in July. What I'm thinking, that my expectation versus my hope. My expectation is the tournament. But what I think is going to happen is Tony Khan is going to do a fucking, casino ladder match. And he's just going to put the title on top of a ladder. The first one who catches it wins. And I already hate that idea. Because what I'd like to see is a nice little tight tournament. Quarterfinals, semis, finals. That's all you need. You don't have to do a huge thing. And I want Dan Garcia and Konosuke Takeshita in the finals. I don't care who wins. I think that would be a tremendous finals. That's something you can put on your on your pay-per-view, any pay-per-view. And people will be excited for it. That's a match people would get behind. And I don't care who wins. We can have arguments for both. We can absolutely have arguments for both Garcia and Take Soup. Takeshita, look, he's been in there for 2 years. He's an absolute star. He's a freak in the ring. What are we even doing? You know, it's time, more than time for the push. But again, we're going to talk about Takeshita in a bit. Garcia, I mean, Garcia is another guy who actually has, you know, history surrounding the TNT title, you know, and so on. I think it'd be tremendous as well. You know, in the chat, we're talking about Darby versus Jack Perry again, you know. I don't think there's a bad answer, but there's a bad way to execute it, in my opinion. If it's just thrown away. And you know what? Here's the other thing. If they strip Edge from the Edge of the title, there's no rush to get it back on TV regardless. Like, we're all talking about, oh, we're going to strip Edge. If we do this by Japanese promotion standards, let's say, then the only time the champion gets stripped is if he misses a booked defense. That's when you get stripped. So if you have a title shot coming up and you can't make it, that's when you get stripped. We could do that. There's nothing on the agenda right now, so we'll know, right? So, you know, we'll know how things go. And if we end up with if we end up with, you know, just a casino thing again, look, I'm coming back to this, but if we do the casino thing, it's nonsense. And I'm not into it. I'm completely not into it. So here you go. So there you have it. Jack Swagger is leaving. Breaking news on the live podcast. Really? We heard about Mark Henry apparently leaving. And Jake Hager, look at that. And Arn Anderson too. Oh, the breaking news, folks. So we've got, all right, so contracts are coming up. Jake Hager no longer with AEW. We knew about Mark Henry. And we're not talking about those tonight because we've got a lot of very interesting things to talk about. Mark Henry leaving. Look, maybe we should take a minute to talk about the contracts then. Maybe we should. Maybe we should. I'll put a little timestamp here. But look, Mark Henry is leaving. His contract's running out. He said it was a common accord, like everyone's in agreement. It's the best thing to do. Mark just wants to. I'm sure he's probably like, look, they're having me sit around not doing anything. Maybe he's probably maybe even flying in every week. Who knows, you know? And he's like, you know, I might as well just sit at home on a Legends contract. That's probably it. He's probably just I'm just gonna wait for a Legends contract. And there we go. He's got it, and it's fine. And well, he's got it. That's probably what's coming up. He probably feels he has a better chance at that now that Vince is gone. So good for him. Like, honestly, it's not as if he was this integral part of the show. It's absolutely fine. He had his moments, right? He had his moments with it's time for the main event. He's left his signature on the entertainment side of the show, but other than that, Arn Anderson also is leaving. I hadn't heard that. Arn Anderson is going to be leaving. He said this on his podcast that his contract is expiring on May 31st and he will be departing the company. He expressed deep gratitude for Tony Khan, praising him as a wonderful person and acknowledging the significant impact the AEW president has had on the wrestling industry by providing talent with an alternative place to work. He wants to spend his remaining years in wrestling to help develop his son into a star. So there you go. Again, that makes sense to me too. Like, it's really another era of AEW. Same thing with Jack Swagger, Jake Hager leaving the company. Like, Jake Hager, Bodyslam.net is reporting. That's what Kristen said in the chat, right? His contract has run its course with no indication of renewal, rendering him a free agent. Apparently, it is mutual. There you go. I mean, look, Arn, Swagger, or Hager, these kind of feel like people that are from already another era of AEW, right? Like, be on it. Like, there was something very, I wouldn't say jarring, but surprising when you'd see Jake Hager pop up. Over didn't he show up a couple of times, like last fall? In the post JAS stuff. Where he's like, he just show up, and it's like, oh, right, this guy, like this guy. This is the guy who had the MMA match with Wardlow. He's really from another era of this company, just like Arn is. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on their contributions, but they were phased out, and I think it's okay. Other people slip back into place, took their spot. Look, what does Jake Hager have to bring to the table as the big guy in this company in 2024? I'm going to tell you, what I found really strange was Chris Jericho getting himself a heater with his current gimmick, and the heater turns out to be not Jake Hager, because those guys are like this, right? And Chris Jericho, you all know the story, right? Jake Hager saved his life, Anyway, so Chris Jericho has always felt indebted to him and was always looked out for Hager. Always tried. So he came into the company and obviously under Chris Jericho's advisement, and he was part of Jericho's stables. And now I'm like, I found it odd where it's like, he's got a heater, but it's not Hager, it's Big Bill. Don't get me wrong, I like Big Bill. And honestly, I think Big Bill has much more upside than Hager does. So it's the right choice. So there was clearly something on the burner there, because Jericho, his first go-to was Hager. Plus, it makes sense in the history of the company as well, in the kayfabe of the company. I don't know what to say. I think these are fine. I don't think anyone is going to raise to the top and oh no, this is absolutely bullshit. And no, you should have hung on to Arn because Arn brings some. What has Arn Anderson been doing recently? He worked with Cody and that was tremendous. And yeah, he might just end up back in WWE, managing Cody, being the Jose Lothario to Cody Rhodes' Shawn Michaels. He could be. I wouldn't be surprised. He's not getting a producer job, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what. The Codyverse does live. It continues. It lives on. Hey, so have you heard that Tony Khan is disappointed? Have you heard that he's disappointed in regards to his contract, his media deal, I should say? Have you heard? Matt Belloni of The Puck reported earlier today on Tuesday again, May 28th, which is when we record this, reported earlier today that Warner Brothers Discovery head David Zaslav, everyone's favorite, and TNT Sports head Louis Silberwasser, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, want to retain AEW Dynamite, Collision, and Rampage. Now this caught on a lot of steam because of one part of the report. The one part of the report which was featured prominently in headlines from wrestling site aggregators and with one specific quote. This is the part of the report that was added in all of these aggregators reports. Okay, you ready for this? The clock is ticking. I'm told, this is Matt Belloni, right? I'm told the exclusive window for negotiation closes in July, and AEW leader Tony Khan is said to be disappointed with the offer currently on the table. Khan also surely knows that Zaslav losing the NBA would give AEW more leverage, even though the money to re-up AEW is a mere drop in the NBA bucket. If the window closes without a deal, others could swoop in for those rights, as Comcast has done with the NBA. Extra awkward because Warner Bros. is said to own a stake in the league being AEW. Now that's a whole other conversation which we are not going to get into today. We're not getting that businessy today, but this is the quote that was shared. The fact that Tony Khan was disappointed about the result, the current state of negotiations, right? So it's interesting, but the article here was not talking about Tony Khan, right? The article, which was much more extensive, and was about David Zaslav potentially bungling another rights deal, like he did with the NBA. That was the action. But somehow, the aggregators all put out their sad-faced thumbnails for their articles and YouTube channels of Tony Khan going, he's disappointed, and acting as if this was a bad thing for them being AEW. It was a good thing for them, for the aggregators, because you put sad-faced Tony out there. Trust me, I tested it, works. You put sad Tony out there, it gets a lot of engagement. But the article is not talking about Tony Khan. Now the problem, why didn't the aggregators didn't do their job, and why didn't they report the entirety from the article? Well, because the Puck is a subscription. The Puck requires a subscription. They didn't want to pay for the article. So whoever reported it out first, everyone else just copy pasted it blindly without doing diligent reporting or without going for the real headline. Let's read the entire quote from the article, shall we? Remember, the quote that ended up in the aggregators started off by saying, the clock is ticking, right? Right? Here's the full quote. Everyone's talking about David Zaslav and Warner Bros. Discovery probably losing the NBA, but nobody's talking about the other rights deal he's about to bungle, All Elite Wrestling. Why? Because WBD's Turner Sports is still in the exclusive negotiating window with AEW. The upstart WWE competitor signed a multi-year deal with Turner in 2020 with an option that Turner exercised, and now Zaslav and TNT Sports lead Louis Silberwasser would like to keep the 5 hours of AEW programming per week on TNT and TBS. But the clock is ticking. And then we move on to the spot where they say the window's closing in July, and Tony Khan is said to be disappointed. So somehow, this article, which is not painting Tony Khan in any bad light as a goof or whatever, this article, which is straight up an article on, is David Zaslav going to fuck up another rights deal, somehow became fodder for the aggregators and the bad faith actors to go after Khan. They jumped on this as if it was a bad thing, when in fact, this information was leaked to Baloney at Puck for a reason. It was leaked for a reason. It makes perfect sense that Tony Khan would want this to be thrown out there, because it will give him leverage. I am convinced that David Zaslav is not happy at the idea of losing the NBA, okay? TNT Sports, Warner Bros. Discovery invested so much money. This is what my sports friends tell me, right? And I believe them because they're credible, smart people. But this is what they were telling me about the TNT Sports thing. They invested so much money, millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, in creating the TNT Sports brand and their pre-shows, their analysis shows. You know, they have some for the NHL, they have some for the NBA, they have studios, they have sets, they have, so much money being pumped into this. They don't want to turn around and the fact that the NBA is going away is a hit they have to take, but they can't just dump TNT Sports and say, well, it's a loss, not with the amount of money that was put into it not that long ago. So the fact that this is being leaked, right, absolutely puts egg on Zaslav's face. The way it's worded. Look at how it's worded. Everyone's talking about David Zaslav losing the NBA, but nobody's talking about the other rights deal he's about to bungle. All Elite Wrestling. That's in the article. Somehow this is a bad Tony Khan piece? No, it's not. It's actually very positive. It's actually, very positive. It's not bad against him. How about that? And when you think about it for a second, you can kind of see the strategy on top of it. You can kind of see the strategy at the same time. Look, in the chat, we're asking, I think it's entirely possible that AEW already has a deal but not have it announced yet. I don't think so. This is the kind of thing that you don't sit on for too long. And knowing how precarious all of these rights deals are, they want to, and especially since they're in the exclusivity window still, they want to nail this as soon as possible. They just want to lock this shit down as soon as possible. And if I'm David Zaslav, as I was going to say, right? I don't think I completed that thought. If I'm David Zaslav and I'm being singled out as the guy who lost the NBA for my company, and I'm supposed to be this entertainment and television executive mastermind, and I'm fucking up the NBA deal, and someone's writing an article where he might fuck up the wrestling deal, which is, a drop in the bucket of the NBA. Sure, it's insignificant, but what kind of deals can he hang on to if he can let wrestling slip by? Jeez. That's egg on his face. And this guy has an ego. They all have fucking egos at this point. So he doesn't want to come off as looking weak here. So I can understand that Tony wants it leaked to say, oh, well, maybe I wasn't really all that happy. Maybe I want to go elsewhere. I don't think I don't think that they have the deal set. I don't think the deal is set in stone. I mean, here's what I think is possible. I think it's possible that look, one thing that we could all agree on at this point is that there has been an offer, right? And Tony, according to this report, didn't like it. And by the way, we're speculating on this. There's a lot of conjecture, but it could also all be junk because this Belani fella is a Nick Khan guy. Before Nick Khan joined WWE, as you remember, he was an agent and he represented a lot of the big names in sports media that you know and love today. This guy made a lot of people very rich. Nick Khan did, I should say. And Beloni was represented by Nick Khan. So he's a Nick Khan guy. And what does Nick Khan do with his guys and gals? Well, he gives them a call when he needs some information pushed, right? So it could all be junk. And AEW reacted to, I think it's directly to, didn't they react directly to Dave Meltzer? Let me pull this up here. Yes. According to Dave Meltzer, AEW sources have told him that the first offer was not disappointing to Tony Khan, but that the two sides have yet to reach any deal. Negotiations for both TV and streaming are ongoing with Warner Bros. And not TNT Sports. Okay, so someone reached out to Meltz and told him, hey, Dave, we're not disappointed. Okay, so there's something going on, and it could be real, and then reaching out to Dave to say the opposite and just muddying the waters a bit. That could be it. Or it could just be junk. So. But I think we agree, right, that there is an offer out there. I think that's undisputable. And it could be that the offer that they received from Warner Bros. Discovery is good, maybe even enough to make AEW solvent, you know? But maybe AEW feels like their rights are worth maybe a little more than what they're being offered, right? Maybe they just feel that they're being undervalued, and that's what negotiations are, right? Especially if it's a first fucking offer. You never accept the first offer. Kids. If your mortgage broker on your first meeting shows you a percentage and you accept it, he should send you 3 Christmas gift baskets this year. Try to make sure that the sucker stays close. So it could be that the offer isn't high enough, right? It could be that the offer is not high enough to prevent AEW from, hitting the open market once the exclusivity window closes, right? Because they feel good about getting a higher price, right? Because don't forget, we're talking 3 programs. We're Dynamite, Collision, Rampage. We're talking, unscripted programs. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing with RJ City and Renee with the meal and a match thing. We don't know what else is in the pipeline. Ring of Honor's still around. I don't know, but there's a lot. Then you already have the back catalog. You have the pay-per-view revenue that you can share with your partner. Like there's a lot of stuff that Tony could be like, no, we're worth more than this. Look at what the market leader is getting. Sure, we don't have the reach, the ratings. That's fine. But look at the value that we bring. I think we're still worth more than this. And in fact, look, in a report today, Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, I'm back to doing the weekly WrestleNomics plugs. Follow Brandon. Follow WrestleNomics. Join the WrestleNomics Patreon. It is the best wrestling-related money you will use. Trust me. Brendan Thurston speculated and reported that maybe AEW could be, in fact, attracted to splitting all of the programming over multiple partners. This is what he had to say. I think AEW domestic rights could end up split between Warner Bros. Discovery and another media partner, or more than two partners even. The likeliest bidders, besides WBD, seem like Fox, maybe for FS1, and Amazon for Prime Video. Or maybe someone else will come out of left field. No one expected Netflix or the CW to be wrestling broadcasters a year ago. Or, considering the loss of the NBA, maybe WBD will make a sufficient offer for all AEW rights sometime just before the exclusive window closes. And that's very interesting. And that's something, when you reread the statement from, not the statement, but the report from Baloney, let me pull it up here. He says in his report that Zaslav and Silberwasser, quote, would like to keep the 5 hours of AEW programming per week on TNT and TBS. I find that very interesting in the context of what Brandon said here. I had sniffed it. I read Brandon's report. I'm like, oh, so I'm not completely off course here. Why wouldn't AEW look at what all sports leagues are doing, right? You've got your Sunday this, and your Friday that, and your Thursday this, and your Saturday that, all spread out all over, all piecemealed, all over the place. Look at what WWE is doing. They're not on one. They've got stuff on the CW, on Netflix, and on USA. So maybe Tony's like, all right, maybe I can get more. Maybe I can get more maybe I could get more by splitting everything up. And in the chat, we got another point here. Remember, Fox is losing SmackDown, and here comes Tony Khan, and they can get anyone in his shows for cheap. You will recall on this very broadcast last year, we talked multiple times in regards to the AEW deal that it would not be, baffling to imagine AEW going to a Fox property. We were talking about Fox itself, seeing that, yes, they may collect more. The ratings might not be as high, sure, as SmackDown, but SmackDown is what is it? These like in the 1.6, 1.7 total viewership on average? Like, we're not exactly breaking barriers here. We're not exactly going nuts here. But look, the point being is that you could go to Fox, get good ratings. I'm not saying the same that you do with WWE, but you still get good ratings like they're currently getting, and they would be brought in for a fraction of the price that WWE is paying for. And maybe your ad rates they fluctuate a little bit, but maybe it becomes easier to sell. Maybe your targets aren't as difficult to achieve as when you had SmackDown on Friday nights, which was ultimately the problem, which is why Fox decided to dump them, not renew anyway. Brandon also adds this: I wouldn't rule out the possibility of international rights playing some role in a domestic renewal. AEW's deals with VIX in Latin America and DAZN in certain European countries recently evaporated, which is probably not great news for AEW's international media value, but it does at least free up more rights in the related territories. Warner Bros. Discovery, as well as other potential bidders, distribute globally and might be interested in rights being more broad than just in the US. See, in other words, maybe the DAZN and the Latin America, the VIX deals, maybe they fell apart, but this might actually turn out to be a positive if this is something else that AEW can throw into the hat and say, here you go. Here you also have access to my full international distribution. So these all might have further implications. This all might like have well, it will all have further implications, but I think that this is just part of an overall strategy. And I think it's interesting that Brandon pulls up the idea of splitting the programming onto different networks. Every fucking pro sports league is doing it. WWE did it. There's money to do that. You piecemeal your offer. Maybe finally, Collision ends up on Prime Video, and here in Canada, we can actually watch it live. Maybe. So it's funny that this somehow turned into a thing where it's like, no, this is, Tony Khan is sad. This is again bad news for AEW. I don't see the bad news here personally. Because I think only the truest, dumbest people in the world believe that if AEW doesn't re-sign with Warner Bros., that AEW is dead. I think it's only truly the dumbest people in the world who believe that. If you believe that, well, I hope I was able to educate you and you no longer are a part of the dumbest people in the world. Welcome. Anyway, we're going to keep an eye on all of this. Very interesting stuff. Feels good to talk about the business too. I'm feeling good tonight. I'm feeling very good tonight. In fact, I'm feeling so good. Let's move on to the main event. The review of AEW Double or Nothing 2024, which occurred just a couple of days ago is when we're recording this. May 26, 2024, from Las Vegas, Nevada, the MGM Grand Arena. You know what? I just realized that I did not prepare for this live recording. I did not prepare the numbers, the attendance. I guess I was too nervous. Let's call it that. Shall we? Double or Nothing. We got it. From the MGM Grand Arena. We got it all now. 7,643 tickets distributed for a setup of 8,396. Not great. Not terrible, but not great. Especially when you consider in 2022, of course, we were coming out of the pandemic at that point, 13,131 tickets were distributed for the show. Last year, 10,550. We're all in the same city, all in the same place. I mean, we were able to do better numbers than the pandemic Double or Nothing, which is good. But this is supposed to be one of the marquee shows. This is supposed to be one of the marquee events, one of the tentpole events of AEW. They made somewhat of a big deal out of it tonight, talking about how, it's been 5 years. This is the event that started it all, so on and so forth. And it was 5 years, But it didn't come across as a big deal, or I think the build to it was a little wonky at the same time. 7,000 7,000 or some. There's no way that, there's no way in the office they're looking at this and they're saying, oh, good job. This was not a, business-wise, I'm convinced this was not a success for them. Well, I'm only convinced. I'm sure that that it's not regarded as a success. What are the buys going to look like? I don't think there's anything that really warranted tons of buys or, late buys after the show. You didn't have a Danielson versus Ospreay on this one to sort of feed late buys and so on and so forth. So I don't know. One thing's for sure is that I would take a break from Vegas. I would absolutely take a break from Vegas. I think the territory's a little burnt for them right now. Come back in a little bit, especially when you have some big established stars. I know your whole thing is casinos and betting on betting and gambling. But it's fine if the aesthetic doesn't follow absolutely flawlessly every time. There we go. This was a wrestling show. You don't say, Warren. Yeah, that's right. This was absolutely a show that I enjoyed. I thought was fine. And it's kind of disappointing. It's like, it's a weird one for me. Or it's a show that I enjoyed. That overall is like, this is nice. But I will never think about this show ever again. How about that? I won't be thinking about it at the end of the year when I'm putting lists together, when I'm putting stuff together for content or whatever. Like this is one that's going to be completely erased from memory. Not an awful show, not a bad show. I've seen bad wrestling shows this year. This was not a bad wrestling show. But it felt like a very run-of-the-mill outing of AEW where everything is good, close to everything is good, sound. You got a couple of really remarkable matches, but that's about it. I think back to Revolution and I go back to think about Revolution this year, which is one of the all-time greats, right? Which is absolutely one of the all-time great pay-per-views, right? You had, you think back to Dynasty, right? Dynasty had tons of incredible matches on it. You had Okada and Pac. You had Ospreay and Danielson, of course. You had Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly. You had the Bucks and FTR. You had the crowning moment for Swerve. Like that, again, is something that I'm like, yeah, this fucking ruled. It felt like a transitionary show. It felt like, okay, we're just gonna move on to this. And nothing felt definitive. Nothing felt strong. I have a lot of quibbles. They're back. I've got a lot of quibbles with this show. Nothing for me to sit down here and say, this was awful. This was a bad show, because it was not. It was I don't think this was a bad show. But I think part of it is, look, I talked about Dynasty, I talked about Revolution. I think when you put things into context and the the bar for AEW pay-per-views, which are systematically great, like that is your baseline. When your baseline is greatness and you don't deliver on greatness, you sort of go away and you're like, well, what happened here? You know, again, not saying this is a bad show, but for AEW pay-per-view standards, we're underneath. This didn't deliver. This wasn't what I expected. It kind of reminds me of when the USA Network era of NXT began. Do you remember that? We were like, I feel like the real height, that's when the real heights of the black and gold era really, really came crashing down. The takeovers, which were undeniably great pay-per-views all the time, they were the talk of the town. Everyone was going bonkers for it. Come back after the USA Network era, and it's not the same. There's a shift in tone. There's a change. You can sense a transition into something else, and it's not connecting. We are not getting the takeovers of old, and that era was done, and we haven't gone back. I don't care what people online try to tell you about this current era of NXT. We are so far from the takeovers. It's not even funny. And in AEW's case, again, this is something that I mentioned quite a bit. Attendance is not great. Attendance is down year over year. Ratings down as well. Not still performing well, but not maybe on the levels that they'd like. I don't know. Yeah. But the one thing you can always guarantee is that the pay-per-views are great. That's the one thing that is the mark of this company, is that the pay-per-views are systematically great. And I don't think this was the case. See, if you've been listening to my Dynamite reviews, which you should, by the way, on a weekly basis, right? Every Thursday, I get on here, and for the past couple of weeks, I've been saying pretty systematically that the vibes are off. There's something not the same, that I'm not sure this is the company I usually like. The stuff that they're doing is not connecting. We're not having these great dynamites where you just have bangers on top of bangers and all sorts of shit happening. And I remember sitting at this desk and doing my reviews for like 8-9 weeks straight, screaming into this microphone, "We're spoiled." Do you remember that? Fans, friends, well-wishers who listen to my Dynamite reviews. It would be a bit screaming into the microphone week after week of the quality of the wrestling, the weekly wrestling programming we were getting on TV. I haven't done that in a while. This was the year Tony Khan told us after the Continental Classic that AEW was going to return to a more sports-based presentation that, you know, would shy away from the sports entertainment stuff. Oh, you could have fooled me. And I've been fooled once. Fool me once, shame on me. No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you won't get fooled again. No, but shout out to anyone who gets that reference. But the thing, thank you for remembering. I'm glad I'm not. Sometimes I feel like I'm going insane over the things that I remember and don't, but I appreciate chat backing me up on this. The fact that right now, last year, in the spring, in the same vicinity, began the brochachos, and you all know I didn't like it. Thank you for getting the reference. For all of you, for everyone who would watch and listen to me back then, knows that I didn't like the brochachos. I thought it stunk. I thought it was such a complete departure from what this company was great, and it ended up driving business away. CM Punk stuff didn't help. I agree. But we were such a departure away from what made this company special, the promise upon which it was built. We were so far away. And then now we're a year later, spring, and we have fucking authority figures. You know, we got all this stuff. Sports entertainment angles more and more. There was interference in all but 3 matches on the show, when the norm is the opposite. And again, these are all things that I've talked about on the Dynamite review, so I'm not going to rehash everything. But I feel like everything I've been talking about climaxed in this show. I feel like for the past 3-4 weeks when I've been saying, man, I don't get it, something's off, and I'm not feeling it, and I feel like tonight or Sunday night was the show that proved me right, that showed me that, again, I wasn't going insane because the direction was clear, or the lack of direction was clear. Now, I know everyone, look, I don't want to harp too much on interference because I don't think I'm a guy who is that much of a stickler when it comes, oh, well, there's interference. Like, for most part, it doesn't bother me when it's used, sporadically, when it's used well, when it's used efficiently, smartly, when it advances something. All but 3 matches on this card had some form of interference, including the buy-in shows, some sort of shenanigans. I don't know what to think here. I don't know what to think. So if interference happens in 1 or 2 matches, all right, that's fine. But does every match need to have interference? I've argued with people who told me, yes, but having Christian's goons attack Swerve made perfect sense in the story. Yes, yeah, I agree with you. But the 8 other occurrences, were they needed? We can do this sporadically, gently. Pepper it in instead of slathering on everything. Too much of a thing can be bad. And I think it was bad. And I think it also shows that the agents, the producers, the people who put these matches together, they don't talk to each other. At some point, someone has to step in and say, well, do we have to run interference here because we're already doing it in 4 other matches? For instance, why can't we get clean finishes? Why can't we get clean matches? Why are we always trying to protect everyone? Why did we need to protect Malachi Black? For instance, definitive wins. That's how you get people over. 50-50 interference nonsense bullshit. That happens somewhere else. And that's the reason why I don't watch the other show anymore. Now, like I said on my review, I know I'm harping on this, but I want to make sure that I think I'm reaching a point where I just have to accept that this is what North American wrestling fans want out of their wrestling. I don't understand why they don't want just good old-fashioned wrestling. I don't get it, but they seem okay with it. The AEW freakazoids, and I say that lovingly, this is not an insult, but you freakazoids, they're all okay with it. It's fine. It's fine. The Christian Swerve match had just about as much interference in it as a Bloodline main event. And I couldn't stand those. So I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you, hey, Swerve and Christian, everyone interfering, that was great. I can't sit here and tell you that with a straight face. I would not be consequential with my own reviews. You could call me out on it. You could say, well, why do you like this and you hate this? I got to be consistent. Oh, I don't watch the other place. Well, there you go. And yet, this is a company where people get over the most when they're just doing wrestling shit. Will Ospreay got himself over by being spectacular in the ring and cutting great promos. Jon Moxley got himself over in AEW by having great matches and great promos. Same with, look, Eddie Kingston, fine worker, better promo guy. But they're not involved in goofy fucking angles. There's no spooky shit happening. There's no, levels of intrigue. They just go out there and they do fucking wrestling things. And they get themselves over. And they're stars. Superstars in some cases. I will always talk about Jamie Hayter. Everyone wants Jamie Hayter back. They're excited to get Jamie Hayter back. Everyone loves Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter was not supposed to get over. She was supposed to be Britt Baker's lackey, her sidekick. But she got herself over. Why? Was it because of the skill that she had on the microphone? Hell no. She got herself over because she had tremendous matches. In this company where work rate is valued, and that is a company which is built on great wrestlers, great, absolutely great professional wrestlers. Why do we feel we have to fall into artifice, into nonsense to get these people over? This is arguably the greatest pro wrestling roster ever assembled. Currently, right now, in 2024. Why aren't we selling out arenas? Why aren't we beating pro sports? Well, that I might not, and on ratings, that might be a little, but why isn't AEW the talk of the town? Is it really because there's not enough, is it really because there's not enough authority figure angles? Is it really because there's not enough video packages? Is it really? Who are we trying to please? That's always the question. Who are we trying to please? So again, maybe this is what the average North American fan wants. But I think the average North American fan already has its wrestling. And they're watching it, and they're not going to flip to the other guys. Because they're going to feel like oh, I'm watching the Bush League. I'm not watching the Bush League. I'm watching the top guys. Is it to respond to the criticisms online of the bad faith actors who always say there's no stories, no stories, no stories? I saw a thing today. As people share things on Twitter in my hunts of someone saying the problem with Double or Nothing was that there was too many stories. This is from the same people who say AEW doesn't do stories. Now there's too many stories. They will never ever say AEW is doing something right. They will move the goalposts. If they're not doing stories and AEW suddenly does stories, they're going to say they're doing too many stories and you don't know what's going on anymore. And we had the proof. I've been saying this for months. Stop trying to cater to these people who are obviously bad faith. They are not going to watch your product. They're not going to be into it. They're going to move the goalposts once you hit their target. Then it's going to be something else. They're going to find something else to bitch about. They might never ever talk about that again, but they'll find something else to complain on. this is not an alarm. I'm not dooming here in regards to this show, where I'm saying it was fine, but it was not great. And, it's subpar to what AEW usually does. I'm not dooming, because I like I said, I thought this was a good wrestling show, good little wrestling show. I shouldn't be saying that in regards to an AEW pay-per-view. I should be here, hitting my desk going, this was one of the greatest things I've ever seen, or whatever. This was great, just tremendous, top to bottom. This was not it. But if this becomes a trend, if these pay-per-views become a trend, then we're going to have an issue, and then we'll have another conversation. And I like the show, despite my reticence. This is the apex of all my concerns that I've been talking about. And there's a couple of themes to this review. I've already harped on it enough. Interference. That's a theme of the show. Theme music is also a theme of the show, though, if we want to talk about some of the fun things, too. We brought back Where Is My Mind by the Pixies. We got South of Heaven by Slayer, which is fantastic. I was not expecting that. Tony Khan opening up loosening the purse strings. What am I talking about? Loosening the purse strings. He pulled out he loaded up all the credit cards for Final Countdown one more time. What are we doing? Tremendous. And then, of course, Mox with his theme and so on. Look, AEW gets it when it comes to licensed music. Themes are great and all, and so on and so forth. But they are some are legitimately great. Like the Bullet Club Gold theme is absolutely fantastic. But when you get to when you get to it, there's nothing like a licensed song where you're like, oh shit, this song and it's tremendous. And this is something that AEW gets, and they get it right. One of the things that made the Anarchy in the Arena show last year. So was it last year? It was the one with the Jericho Appreciation Society, right? It was last year. Yeah, I think so. When Wild Thing just played on loop. This is fucking great. This is tremendous. And they did it again with Final Countdown. We'll talk about that in a bit. But no, look, that's something that AEW just gets. Yeah, what was the pay-per-view that Hangman Adam Page came out to? Ghost Riders in the Sky, the 1970-some version. I can't remember. Was it I can't remember the name of the band, because it's Ghost Riders in the Sky is a bit of a classic. It is a bit of a classic. Period. Let me see, because I knew that song, and I got chills when he came out to it. The Outlaws. It was by The Outlaws. Just tremendous stuff. It was in Minnesota when he won the belt. That's correct. Thank you, chat. That was tremendous. Look, I have chills just thinking about it. Look, I had goosebumps. It helps. It enhances stuff. What do you want from me? But we're talking about it in the chat, and I did mention it a little bit. I thought this was... Look, I'm usually not the guy who's going to sit here and complain about pay-per-view length. I'm one of the last people to do that. Because I think it's... Because I think... And I'm systematic in this. Systematic. It is a content creator issue. It is not a real deal. It's not a real issue for fans. It's a content creator issue It's a reporting issue, but it's not a fan issue. I don't believe it. I think the people who, most of the time who bitch about pay-per-view length are content creators. I don't see fans, but I saw a lot of that this week for this match, for this show. And I agree. I think this was a really long show. Like, if you watch the pre-show, it was like 6.5 hours, something like that. That's a fucking long show, man. What are we doing? That's a lot. That's a lot of sitting down in one place. And I think since the matches were not these blowaway matches either, I think it helped make the pay-per-view feel longer. If it had been a little shorter or if the matches had been punchier, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, it was, 4 hours for the main show, but it was a breeze to watch, That's what we've been saying, but that's not the case. I think there's a lot of factors here, but it did feel like a long. Let's get into it. I've been parsing through my feelings. Now we're going to get into it. Deonna Purrazzo defeated Thunder Rosa on the pre-show. Good little match. Deonna Purrazzo holds the ropes to get the win. So the shenanigans already started on this one. But then again, it's the pre-show, so who really cares? But I thought it was a pretty good little match. 3.25 stars I gave. The Acclaimed versus the Cage of Agony. The Acclaimed on the pre-show feels right. I'm completely okay with this. And we have the Las Vegas Knights, their mascot. Why is the mascot of the Las Vegas Knights like a dinosaur? I feel like it was a knight at some point. Wasn't it a guy with a helmet? Right? Like a crusader type gimmick, right? Wasn't that, or did I just dream that? Is that something that just exists in my head? Look, it's okay. Roll up by Billy Gunn to get the win. I got nothing on this. I gave this 2.75 stars. I am not the guy for the Acclaimed. Also in the pre-show, we had the announcement by Tony Khan and Martha Hart that the newest edition of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament is going to be starting very soon. In fact, it will end on July 10th at the Dynamite at the Calgary Saddle Dome. So the main event will happen there in front of, inside, I should say, of Owen's hometown. The winners of both, this is a little wrinkle that we added, a little extra something special, a little more stakes here to the tournament. The winners of the tournament will both get the women and male winners. The guy and the gal will both win shots at their respective genders title world championships at All In. That was extremely convoluted, Warren. Could you have said this in a more confusing manner? Let's try again. The winners, male and female, of the Owen Cup will both get world title shots at All In Wembley this year. I am all for a little more spicy stakes. I'm glad the Owen's back. I love tournament wrestling. I think it's good. I hope that the brackets are released ahead of time. Like, what are we doing? Can we stop? Here's another thing. There was a time where you could really feel like AEW was booked in advance, that there was forethought to this. Now it feels a lot more slapdash. Show me that you have a plan and put these fucking brackets out a week, at bare minimum a week before. So that everyone will, because here's the thing, and it's not just because I'm a fan and I want to, it's because you will dominate an entire week cycle of podcasts and articles and previews of people speculating on who's going to win, doing some bracketology. That's how they're going to, and it's free. It's free. You don't spend a dime for it. You'll have people like me who are going to pull up a board and we're going to be, okay, so this scenario and so on and so forth. There you go. But it also shows that you have a plan, that you're not just booking this by the seat of your pants. Tony. So I like the idea that there's stakes. I've heard people say, oh, the finish will probably be very predictable. Will Ospreay's going to win, right? Let me propose the following. What if Will Ospreay wins, gets his big match in 2025? Here's what without seeing any brackets, I think that the fucking best possible finish for this match, for this tournament, I should say, the best possible finals you could hope for is Will Ospreay versus Hangman Adam Page. Because if those guys are in the finals, you have more than enough logic and good reasons to put either guy over. If it's Will Ospreay and, I don't know, name a guy, Ray Phoenix, Ospreay's going over. You know what I mean? Will Ospreay versus, or Hangman Adam Page versus, Orange Cassidy. Page is going over, But Page, Ospreay in the finals, that, my friend, it makes perfect sense for both of these scenarios. And I would even argue that Page and Swerve is the more interesting match. I think it's the more interesting matchup. That's just me. We'll talk about this another time. I mean, I'm speculating on shit we haven't seen, and we'll probably just get the brackets. The tournament will start on a Wednesday. They're gonna do like they did with the collision with the Continental Classic, right? They're gonna have the preview show on YouTube, and they're gonna fucking broadcast it like 5 hours before the first Dynamite that starts airing the tournament. And you're like, what the fuck? Who cares? You could have done this 2 weeks ago. Honestly, G1 season's coming up. I'm excited. So that was the pre-show. Let's go to the main program. Started off with the AEW International title match, where Will Ospreay successfully defeated Roderick Strong to become the new AEW International Champion. This is my match of the night. And it started off so strong. See, this is part of what disappointed me too, is that this match started off so strong. I'm like, Jesus Christ, out the gate. And we got so much great stuff coming up. I'm so excited about this. But look, into the match itself. This was a tremendously excellent match between two excellent wrestlers. There's no other way to. This is how you talk about this match. You got strikes, submissions, groundwork, aerial stuff, big moves. What else do you want out of your professional wrestling match? All executed flawlessly, great pace. And the only reason why it didn't go higher than a 4.5 out of 5. Yes, I'm that high on it. The only reason I didn't go higher is because Don Callis slowed everything down. And they did this angle with the Tiger Driver 91. We've been talking about it for weeks. I'm really disappointed that I didn't get to do my preview last week, because I wanted to speak on this stuff. But Will Ospreay, for some reason, is doing this angle. Like, this is what I mean with stories and angles. Do you need this to get Will Ospreay over? The answer is no, because Will Ospreay's already over. Let the guy wrestle. Let him cut promos like he's been cutting. That's all he needs. We don't need these angles where it's like, oh, am I too violent? Bullshit. Like straight out of Johnny Gargano's NXT run, stuff. He's like, oh, looking at his hands. Am I too violent? You're a pro wrestler. Yes, you are. By definition, you are. And I get it. Look, Callis tells him to do the Tiger Driver 91. Will is like fired up. Yeah, I'm going to do it. But he puts Roddy in the position. And he's like, no, I can't do it. And it's all unnecessary. It's all unnecessary for Will Ospreay to do this. Just like the Kingdom doing the Doomsday device on the floor that almost killed Will out of the gate was also unnecessary. Look, the Tiger Driver 91 thing. Here's the breakdown is as simple as this. Will Ospreay regretted doing that to Bryan Danielson because Danielson got really hurt and he took some weeks off to sell the injury, right? But now he's back. It's fine. It's not. So why are we still going, oh, the Tiger Driver 91? It doesn't matter. Danielson's back. Like, if Ospreay is taking out guys and they're shelving them for real, like, for real, like they're shelving them for weeks. And you're like, okay, we got something here. This is interesting. But Danielson's back and he's wrestling. He was in a fucking nut bar match. And here's another thing. Don Callis family, I've been very patient, but I don't know what it's for. I don't know who it's for. I don't know what it's doing. I think it's an impediment. Like in this match, it was absolutely an impediment. I understand the gimmick and the link. When they brought Will Ospreay in officially, they kept the connection with Callis because Callis had brought him in for the Forbidden Door last year to fight Kenny Omega, and I get I get the through line, but we have to stop pretending like the Don Callis family is this important stable and that there's tightly knit faction of wrestling. Takeshita loses all the time. Hobbs was losing all the time. Sammy Guevara had to get kicked out of it. Like Kyle Fletcher is relegated to Ring of Honor. Like it's a stable of jabronis, and Will Ospreay just happens to be in there as well. So you have to get Will Ospreay out of there. They're doing shit with Orange Cassidy. There's too much Don Callis family for the importance that they have when the nitty gritty comes to it. Don Callis always seems around doing shit and I'm recruiting, we're the greatest family, but it's bullshit. I understand that the family is a callback to Bobby the Brain, but Heenan had guys who would actually win matches. I understand. But his guys weren't losing over and over again. And one of the reasons why the Heenan family was where people were like, oh, is because they would win. Takeshita can't win the big one. Any big one. Kyle Fletcher is a nerd on AEW. And he's a tremendous talent, don't get me wrong, but he's treated like a nerd. Was Will Hobbs really that special before he got injured? No. Sammy Guevara hit the bricks. Oh, recruiting Orange Cassidy. What the fuck is this? And on top of it all, like, so to come back to my original point, Will Ospreay is a babyface. He's a clear babyface. Hanging around with a heel stable, this has got to stop. And I understand shades of gray, zones, I understand, but this is a detriment at this point. This is not good. And at some point, the people in the Don Callis family have to realize we are losers. Konosuke Takeshita has become a tremendous. He won against Kenny Omega, and that was it. Ever since associating himself after that with the Don Callis family, he has been a loser. Will Hobbs has been a loser. Cal Fletcher is a loser on AEW. All these people have to wake up and like, no, this place is a fucking joke. Anyway. Then, for some reason, Adam Cole's music hits and he gets into the ring. And I promise you, and I was watching with Kristen. If she's still around, she can vouch for this. She's still in the chat. I was watching this with Kristen. And when Adam Cole came out, I immediately said, oh, MJF's returning tonight. MJF is coming back. Because it was so random. There was no point. There was no point. He tries to make it feel like he has a point. I should be wrestling, but my knee, I'm still rehabbing my knee. And I should be here, even if all of you in Vegas suck. My grammar's great. But then the lights go down. We get a nice little video up on the Tonytron. The camera in a hallway going into a room. There's all sorts of knickknacks in the room. Burberry scarf on a mannequin. The Dynamite Diamond ring. When's he defending that again, by the way? Anyway, don't get sidetracked here, Warren. The Dynamite Diamond ring. The oxygen tank that MJF used to defeat Bryan Danielson. The Dinner Debonair tuxedo. A Nightmare Family t-shirt. A bunch of, knickknacks. A trophy room. And then there's the torn picture of Better Than You, baby. And MJF shows up live in Triple H cosplay. I fucking love the reference. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be facetious. Max, this is a good time for you to pop in live. I'm putting you over, pal. So he shows up. He confronts Cole in the ring, takes him out, kicks him in the nuts. Tells this noodle-headed son of a bitch to hit the bricks. Somebody come get this shit stain out of the ring. And then what ensues is a fantastic, fiery, authentic promo from MJF. What we had here was MJF making sure that we understand that he is torching everything that had to do with the brochachos, what he did last year. We're falling short from all-out retconning. He wants us to make damn sure that what's happening tonight is a signal of what's coming, and it has nothing to do with the past here. He says that he remembers exactly who the hell he is, the greatest wrestler on God's green earth, a generational talent, and he's better than you and you know it. Because unlike Adam Cole and the schmucks in the back, he didn't need a New Japan or a Vince McMahon to make MJF, because MJF made MJF. No more kangaroo kicks. I pumped my fist. I did one of these. I lowered my head, puckered my lips, and shook my fist. Raised my hand in the air. He says when you're driven by hate, nobody is safe. Because he's driven by hate. And then he takes the mask, the devil mask, does the Ric Flair thing, elbows it. He says he's been betting on himself since day one. And when it comes to his contract, if it wasn't already obvious to us stupid marks, he says he's all AEW and he's got a tattoo on his leg, on his calf, confirming his staying, as if we didn't already know. Come on. Come on. Look, I know it had been, it was clear. He had re-signed. And, I talked about this when he got injured because people were like, oh, well, what if he doesn't come back 24? And I was like, they would not be setting up all this story with Adam Cole and all of this to not have a payoff. If they wouldn't be doing all of this if MJF didn't intend on coming back. It was obvious. And I'm sorry. Look, not I'm sorry. I'm glad if you got worked. There's no shame in being worked, right? But it was obvious, and it wasn't obvious because he had a tattoo, because he was back at Double or Nothing. It was obvious for months. But this was a fire promo. This was tremendous. This was Maxwell Jacob Friedman at his goddamn best. This was everything I love of the guy encapsulated into this, what was it, like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it was. I saw people bitching about it. Oh, it was too long. It could have ended. No, we needed the whole thing. We needed Max, a fire ablaze, dumping the past. The guy who told us, literally, I'm sorry, I'm going to restore the feeling. Well, look at him putting his money where his mouth is. Look at this guy who months ago told us, I apologize, I failed you as a champion. I will restore the feeling. Gets injured, loses his title, gets injured, comes back, and does exactly that. And fired up and ready for it. And I'm clapping my hands. I'm like, let's go. Let's go, Max. I'm with you. I just watched a tremendous match. Max, you're promising me that this bullshit, that this vibe that I'm feeling right now, it's not here to stay. You're promising me that you're not going to do any more goofiness, no more skits, no more bloomin' onion jokes. Are you really serious, Max? I believe you, Max. I got your back, Max. I always had your back. I've been critical of Max. A lot of people were. I have always been consistent. I've always said that MJF is better than what he was doing the bullshit with Adam Cole. He was better than that. He's a better wrestler. He's a better, well-rounded wrestler. Because there's things that MJF says that are absolute truths. He is a generational talent. He is a great pro wrestler. He's proven it. And he is probably the best all-around package. I agree with him. And I have always said that. Which is what made the brochacho stuff so frustrating, because I knew Max was better than this. I knew he was better than all that stuff. I knew he was better than Candidate Friedman, which always will get a pass from me because pandemic. It will get a pass because of the pandemic, but still, not his shining moment either. But I criticized him. A lot of people criticized him, and I want to point this out. You have to give Max the credit. He listened to the criticism and he took it to heart. I was not as harsh as other people were. I will completely lock onto that. There are people who have completely written him off, still right now. Completely written him off. I don't believe him. But I want to believe in Max. I want to believe that everything he said was 100% true. I'm in it. And he took the criticism, back to the criticism. He took everything that he heard. And I know he's reached out to people in DMs. And he's talked with people. He says, I hear you. I hear the criticism. I know he has. And he took it and he's like, okay, what can we do better? How can I be better? How can I be the pillar of AEW that I want to be? Because here's another thing that I believe is true. I believe that it is true that he wants to stay in AEW. Everyone's saying, he should go to WWE. He'd fit in there, which, yes. But I don't think he wants to go there. I think this thing where he says, where's the quote? That he's been betting on himself since day one. All in, double or nothing. I think he believes in that. He believes, and I think he wants to be the guy who came in from nothing, worked the indies, worked his way up to become the star, the pillar, the guy who can carry the company on his shoulders, the guy who will be a leader backstage, which he already is, by the way. And I believe it. I believe everything he said. So he took all this criticism and he took it instead of what we've seen in wrestling for so many years. People just like doubling down, instead of listening to the criticism, doubling down on the thing that is not working and try to hammer it home and crush it into your skulls. He's not a dummy. I'm sure he's seen that during his reign as champion, attendance started to drop. Ratings didn't go through the roof. I'm sure he's seen this. And he doesn't want that. I think this is a guy who is thinking about his future, his legacy, what he wants to leave behind. And I think he wants to leave AEW in a great spot. I buy into it. If he wants to be the guy who wants to carry the company, I am absolutely ready to put my faith in him more than a lot of other dudes in this company. It was a tremendous promo. And I was ready. And I was fired up. The rest of the show didn't live up to it. This first half hour or so. And I saw criticisms. And look, I am also a guy. And I'm like, you know this. Keep the promos to a minimum. I want to watch wrestling. I don't want to listen to people talk in the ring, especially when I'm paying, $60 for it. Oh, they could have done this promo on Dynamite. Yeah, they could have, but they did it on the pay-per-view. They did it on a fucking big show. They did it on a big show because it's Max. And if it had been a promo for Miro, I would have been like, what the fuck are we doing here? But this is MJF. He is a superstar in this company. He is an OG. He's a guy that you identify with the company. He's a former world champion. He's a guy who's still super over. He's a superstar. And he has something very important to say. Yeah, I think it's fine on the pay-per-view. Make a nice little pay-per-view segment out of this. I have nothing to bitch about. If this had been I don't know. If this had been a Dark Order segment, maybe I wouldn't have been as pleased. Running low on water, excuse me for the... Anyway, let's move on to the rest of the show. We next had the AEW World Trios titles that were defended. The Bullet Club Gold, Jay White and the Guns successfully retained against Death Triangle. This match was fine. Juice returned. They had tossed Ray Phoenix off the top rope. And was it Ray Phoenix or was it Pac? I think it was Pac. And we got the win here. Jay White got the Blade Runner. You remember when... We're talking about going down memory lane quite a bit. You remember when the Trios titles were brought in, even before the Trios titles? You remember when Dynamite, on a weekly basis, I swear to God, if we start doing once we start doing Dynamite rewatches, a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, you know what? This period of Dynamite was pretty fucking cool. You remember when Dynamite would have these really dynamic, super fun 3 3/4 star matches, trios matches on Wednesday nights? You remember that? And people were like, man, trios titles are going to rule. We got all these trios matches and all these trios stuff happening, and it's so cool. And everyone was really excited, and they introduced them, and Death Triangle and the Elite have their best of 7 series, and it was all so dope. And then nothing. And then it's like they're the most boring titles. They really are boring. There's nothing special about them. You know, I was listening to other. I was listening to. I think it was the Flagship, where they were saying, and they're absolutely right. You know, especially now, you've got all these luchadors under your employ, right? And not only do you have luchadors under your employ, but you're working with CMLL now. You could be having like these different matches, these high-flying, fast-paced, awesome matches, you know, every week for the titles. Just like, and they change hands. Who cares? They're trios titles. It doesn't matter. You don't need to have legendary 1,000-day reigns with the fucking trios titles. It doesn't matter. You know, just do something different. This is the potential. You have it right there to do something different. You have trios belts. The other guys don't have them. You have the trios belts you could recreate, like in a flash, one of the greatest things from Monday Nitro in the day, which was the cruiserweights, you know, the luchadors, all the cruiserweights opening up the show and having these great undercard curtain jerker matches. You could have the same thing on Dynamite. You really could. You really could. But that's not what we have here. What we do have, though, is none other than Dan Reed of Pro Wrestling Eve. How are you? It's good to see you, Dan. Welcome. So anyway, I like the match. What did I give this? I gave it 3.5 stars. Like, I thought it was a pretty good match, right? Anyway. Yeah, exactly. See, exactly. Those who got excited, this is what Dan says, same. Those who got excited for the trios titles are people like me who watch promotions like Michinoku Pro, Toryumon, and Dragon Gate, Lucha. You know, it's like, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Guilty as charged. Toni Storm defeated Serena Deeb to retain the AEW Women's World Championship. This was a fine little match. But it didn't have any heat. It didn't have any heat, and I think one of the reasons is because the build was weird. I think another reason is that I think that both Serena Deeb and Toni Storm in the circumstances were miscast. I think Serena Deeb as a babyface was very awkward. She's a heel. Her babyface stuff was very awkward. You know, her talking about her road to rehabilitation while touching, you know, wasn't told in a way to inspire feelings, you know, to inspire sympathy is the word I was looking for. And Toni was being a heel, and then she was a baby face, you know, and then she steals the flag. The stealing flags is a heel thing, and then, you know, Serena Deeb takes it back from her and does, but in a heel way. I think it was very, very strange. And I think that didn't help the match, really. I think the fact that the conclusion is a foregone conclusion as well did not help the match either. I don't think anyone was sitting there. Yeah, I don't think anyone was sitting there with their arms crossed going, I believe Serena Deeb has a chance to walk out of here tonight with the AEW. No. But I'd say the final third of the match, they won the crowd over, and that's a testament to their ability. There's some nonsense with Mariah May because, of course, we have to have interferences. We have to have this on the show. It's a theme of the show. Mariah May wanting to throw in the towel, and then Luther ended up being scolded because Toni Storm thought it was. Look, I am so excited for the prospect of Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa. And this is another build that should be pretty simple, but look, they'll be fighting for the custody of Mariah May. Anyway, extra quarter star from me for the Avalanche Storm Zero. Jesus Christ. You don't see Avalanche pile drivers all that much these days. Well, Serena and Tony were like, yeah, let's do it. Fucking hell. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Again, good little match, fine. I think it suffered from problems that weren't necessarily in the match. We already did that. Orange Cassidy defeated Trent Beretta in one of the rare matches that did not have any outside interference. As we mentioned earlier, Orange Cassidy came out to the Pixies. We're back to the OG AEW theme, and he's in a darker shade of denim because he's dark. He has gone to that place. I'm gonna pull out the blue denim, not just the light denim or the acid wash. No, it's not acid wash that he wears. Just a light shade of denim. No, we're going into the dark blue because he's dark. He's gone to that place. Again, I thought this match was pretty good, actually. There was some good moments, but you know what? This was a black shirt. That's right. He wasn't wearing a white t-shirt. He was also wearing a black shirt. That is correct, chat. There was some good moments to this. But it was definitely like a high-end Dynamite match. Does that make sense? There was some good to this, but you're kind of let's go, and we didn't quite get to that let's go moment. I love the sequence where they're trying to land. There's this whole sequence where they're trying to land signature moves on each other, but they're blocking each other because they're best friends. They know each other really well. I thought that was fun. Orange Cassidy gets a surprise roll-up for the win. And after the match, Renee runs up to Trent, who's walking back. Rocky Romero's there too, and he's like, come on, man. Rocky Romero, who said a couple of weeks ago, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. Well, he's very much involved now. Renee runs up and says, what's next for you, Trent? He says, I'm done. I was like, okay, interesting. Because I thought Trent was going to win here. It's crazy when you think. Again, I like the 3 3/4 star. I think I'm a little high as opposed to everyone else on this. Not high, high, but higher than everyone else. I really liked it. I thought it was super solid. A lot of fun. And, they really play into the idea that they know each other really well. And that's great storytelling, in-ring storytelling. But it's crazy when you think that just a couple of short months ago, we all thought Orange Cassidy was losing up when he lost the international title to Mox. And we're like, here we go. It's the elevation. The elevation. He's going to be a new top guy has entered the fight. And then next thing you know, he's eating chips with Hook. And we're all sort of looking around at each other and like, what just happened here? And this is a systematic booking problem in AEW, where the follow-up is often lacking. You know? He's still over. He's still super over, don't get me wrong. I'm not, I don't think it hurt him, but I think that's a missed opportunity to see just how far can we go with Orange Cassidy, a day oneer, an OG, a guy on top of that so many people were writing off the minute they saw him. He's a goof, he's a comedy wrestler, and look how this guy has evolved, how his character has evolved to where we are today. And most of it was done last year during his international title run, which was a legend of a run. And then he gets to Mox, or like, okay, we're final bossing this, let's go. The follow-up has not been there. He's been back doing lower mid-card stuff. People love him. But I think here's a hot take. I think Orange Cassidy, at the time he lost the title to Mox, was a better fit, was a better pick. Let me say that again. Was in a better spot to be AEW World Champion than Swerve Strickland was or is right now. There's a hot take for you. FTW 3-way match. Chris Jericho defeated Hook and Katsuyori Shibata. I don't have thoughts with this. I don't have thoughts on this match really. Other than it has, look, I don't, as you know, I'm not on the blind Jericho hate train, which I don't think truly exists. His merch sells, his quarter hours are good. Everyone tells me we want him to go away, and yet, I don't know. But was this match good? No. Those are the extent of my thoughts about it. Big Bill interferes, of course. Then a masked man runs in, and we're like, oh, who could it be? Is it Jake Hager? No, it's Brian Keith, which is fine, but you're like, why? Why do the whole rigmarole with the mask and everything anyway? The crowd was into it, though. See, that's the thing. Everyone keeps telling me Jericho has to go away. I'm done with Jericho. I can't stand him. Piss break. But he's still over in the building, and they're not singing to Judas these days, and he's still over. People are still into this. Leaning into the Jericho Vortex thing, as Chad is pointing out. And on top of that, he's pointing out, he's playing into all of the things that people say. Oh, what is the segment that was announced for Dynamite? TV time with Chris Jericho. Jesus Christ. You can't, the guy gets it. He's like, okay, people hate me. All right, let's do it. These are the reasons why they hate me. Okay, fine. I'm going to use it. Pro wrestling. And it's working. If it wasn't working, I would be right there with y'all saying, hit the bricks, pal. But it's working. The data shows that it's working. What do you want from me? I'm going to tell you, though, here's my true thoughts on this match. I think I am done with plunder matches. I think I'm coming around on ladder matches because I feel like a lot of people have sort of... I feel like AEW specifically has tamed down the ladder matches. We don't see them enough, as much, I should say. WWE, same thing, right? Of course, Money in the Bank's coming up just to prove me wrong. But, we don't see them as much. And I was really exhausted. I'm not excited for ladder matches, but at least now I'm sort of like over the hump where it's like I don't want to see them anymore. Now I think it's like I don't want to see a plunder match anymore. Just kendo sticks and tin can garbage cans. I see them every 10 days and I'm sick of them. And this match here, I've seen it a million times. I've seen this match a million zillion times. Yeah, I think I'm done. I think I'm done for a long time. Moratorium on plunder matches. It's wild that Katsuyori Shibata is here doing plunder matches. You take me back to 2014 and you tell me in the future Katsuyori Shibata is going to be running around with garbage cans on his head. I'd be like, you are a liar. Bonkers. How many stars did you give this one? 2. Jon Moxley defeated Konosuke Takeshita to eliminate Takeshita from the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So I have thoughts on this. I gave this 3.5 stars because I thought the work was very good. The story was good, but there's a lot of things that bugged me about the match. Mox's arm got taken out, right? On Collision by Takeshita. He got Pillmanized, right? He did the thing. And this, I understood why they did it. This was clearly to give some credence to the possibility that Takeshita might win the match. Okay? That's what it was for. Jon Moxley fighting from underneath. As if Jon Moxley has to have the underdog story. I don't buy it, but anyway. So this was set up so that we at home would be like, maybe this is a way that Takeshita is going to win the title, is going to win this eliminator match. A scenario which was never going to happen. There was no way in hell that New Japan Pro Wrestling would let a DDT guy pin their world champion. That unless there was a complete and utter meltdown in the front office of the company, Gedo just doesn't care anymore. Tanahashi has lost the plot. Unless there's like some dramatic shift and all of the safeguards put in place to prevent bad decisions being made, there was no way a DDT guy was beating the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. And the result of this is that Konosuke Takeshita looks like a goof. Looks like a dingaling. This is what it boils down to, folks. It was a whole bunch of hooey. He couldn't defeat him with one arm tied behind his back. Literally. Well, not literally, but close to. Moxley was the one-armed man. And Takeshita couldn't do it. This is a guy who 2 years ago, 18 months ago, whenever he came in, immediately enamored North American audiences. Takeshita did. Why? Because he's tremendous. And everyone was saying, push this guy, build him up. And Tony was like, no, we're going to take our time. And Tony's pattern is, we're going to have him lose a whole bunch. And then we're going to start building him. When are we starting to do this? This is what I was talking about earlier with the Don Callis family. It's doing it a service. No true service to anyone. It's bullshit. I mean, it's a hell of a beating that we put on here. Don't get me wrong. It was a hell of a beating. But hey, at least there wasn't interference. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, my brothers, right? Fellas, ladies, what do you think? Am I right? I am out of water and my throat is raw. We're going to have to start wrapping this up. 3.5 stars. I already said that. Adam Copeland successfully retained the TNT title by defeating Malachi Black in a barbed wire steel cage match. Did anyone else get the impression that this was the match that Adam Copeland wanted against Finn Balor at the Hell in a Cell at, what was it, WrestleMania 2 years ago, I think? Do you get that impression? I feel like this was the match he wanted. And instead he got the match where when there's blood, the guy has to get patched up by medical off camera, completely throwing off the flow of the match, right? That's the match he got. So I think that he wanted a make do here. Listen. Okay, listen. Edge come out to the south of heaven. We talked about that. That ruled. This was Malachi. I don't know if you were aware of this stat. I don't know if maybe people posted this on Twitter. I didn't. But I was like, hang on a second. And I went and checked stats. This was Malachi Black's first singles pay-per-view match since joining AEW in 2022. Was it 2022? I think so. In 2 years, 3 years. This was Black's first singles pay-per-view match. And he didn't get pinned. He didn't tap. Technically, didn't lose. And okay, look, I don't want to harp on this too much because, quite frankly, my throat is closing up. So let's get on with it. I like this match for a good part of it. The plunder, like all the shit that was in the ring, it was good, and I liked the old school vibe of it. They weren't trying to piece things together. It wasn't like this great puzzle that they, setting up ladders and shit. It felt like just two guys brutalizing each other, like a good old fashioned cage match should feel like. WWE will tell me, we'll talk about their Hell in a Cells and their cage matches, but they never feel like a cage match. They just feel like a match within a cage. Whereas the cage was tremendous, right? Anyway. So I'm digging the vibes. I'm enjoying it. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a different style of match. And I felt we would perhaps avoid any nonsense, any spookiness, because Malachi Black is pretty good at that. But no, worse yet, we get out of the cage. I don't understand why. I don't understand why we need to do this. And this is, I'm sorry, folks. The collective groan is about to happen. And you can shit on me in the comments if you like. This is a WWE thing. Suddenly because in WWE, everyone gets out of cages and everyone gets in. They even fucking got AJ Styles in the Elimination Chamber. They do it all the time. It is a WWE thing. And I'm like, wait, when are we doing this? And I was shocked because I'm like, Copeland, as I mentioned earlier, Copeland gets it here. He knows you have to adapt to another audience. The tropes of the other place don't necessarily work here. So I groaned. I groaned when that happened. And the House of Black come in, and then they bring him in. They do the tease that they're joining Adam Copeland. That lasted for like 3 seconds. And all of it doesn't matter. And they all get into the ring, and they beat him up in the ring. And I'm like, what are we doing? And like, I had a nice little cage match with two guys who clearly don't like each other, and it was a good time. And then Gangrel comes out. He tears through the ring. So I don't want to poo-poo on anyone's parade who thought, wow, Gangrel, that's awesome. But to me, I was like, oh, it's the annual AEW Gangrel appearance. You know, the commentary was really trying to put it over as something super special, but I think he's been in AEW twice. He's done 2 appearances. At least one I remember with the Young Bucks, where they were kind of making fun of the Brood thing. You know. And I know Adam Copeland wanted to bring him in for a match last year, and it didn't. No, he wanted to bring him in for he wanted to bring Gangrel in for the Brood stuff in WWE, but WWE said no one remembers the Brood. And yet WWE had been pushing Edge, the Brood, you know, the Circle of Fire, and all this bullshit. And anyway, so anyway, look, again, I don't want to poo-poo. I don't want to poo-poo on anyone. Okay, I honestly, I really don't. If you thought this was the greatest thing in the world, that's fine. To me, it's like, what a convoluted nostalgia pop that we're getting here. Like, and for the Brood, which is, yes, like, I think everyone who came up in that era, myself included, have very vivid images of it. You know, and let's not forget, the Hardy Boys were the original, you know, duo. But anyway. But, you know, it's like, okay, and everyone's really excited, and it's like, comes through the ring and the lights and the mist, and he does the Impaler DDTs, and like, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. I'm just like, why are we doing this in the context of this match? Again, more interference, more nonsense. Can't we just have a fucking wrestling match? Like, at this point, I'm like, we're really leaning into stuff that I really loathe. And then you had the elbow drop off the top, which we talked about earlier when we were talking about Copeland being injured. So I'm not going to rehash that. It's all crazy to me. Like, it's all just, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, that's like the Hardys replaced Edge and Christian. You're right, chat. I apologize. 1999 was the 90s were particular years for you, boy, Warren. They were good years. But you're right. Yes, I did get that mixed up. The Hardys replaced Edge and Christian in the Brood. You are correct. So look, I gave this match a 3, but I don't know. Malachi Black doesn't tap. The first singles pay-per-view match doesn't tap, doesn't get pinned. Let's move on. Mercedes Moné defeated Willow Nightingale to become the new AEW TBS champion. This was an excellent match. My second favorite match of the night. Absolutely, without a doubt. Unsurprising, great outing for Mercedes Moné, who is a tremendous pro wrestler, continues to prove me right when I keep telling you over and over and over again that she has always been the best worker out of the 4 horsewomen. This was great. I have very little quibbles outside of the interference. Again, like, can't we just have a match? But this was good. Very good. Great. I give it 4 stars even. So now she's champion. The question is, how much will she be wrestling? Right? I think this is the question we all have moving forward. Because she is a tremendous pro wrestler. And they're doing good by her by letting her wrestle. Turning her heel. They're leaning into her strengths. Her being a heel. Sasha Banks heel. Greater than Sasha Banks babyface. Every single fucking time. And we have more proof here. The babyface stuff she was doing, very awkward, very stunted. Here, she's tremendous. She shines. And she shines because she wrestles. Now look, is this like your pinpoint technical, precision wrestling? No, it's Mercedes Moné. I've said this multiple times. She's a tremendous wrestler. She's sloppy, but sloppy in a good way. Sloppy in a way that makes it feel authentic, real, and she always pulls it off. That's the thing. Like, she's not, we're not talking like, Joshi precision in what she does. It's a quality. I think it adds to her matches. I think it's good. So by letting her wrestle, letting her turn heel, that is how she becomes a fan favorite in AEW. Look at the reaction she got. Look at how people were into the match. Great entrance too, by the way. Like, they really buttered it up for her. She's like, this was a great match for Mercedes. Excellent stuff. Of course, she had a tremendous dance partner. Willow is a great pro wrestler in her own right, excuse me. I'm not kidding when I'm talking about the throat. She's just bonkers good. Just bonkers good. So I'm curious to see what's next. If we go through cycles of Mercedes, again, not wrestling for months, the sheen's gonna go away. And now people are excited for her. They saw her wrestle. They're like, yes, she still has it. She's still great. Let her wrestle. Never mind the angles, the long scripted promo. Give her a bell. Let her wrestle. That's what she's for. I'm really excited to see what's next for her. I really am, because they've created these universes, right? They've created these universes around the TBS titles in the Women's World Championship, right? And there's no real mix and match. So who else is in the spectrum of the TBS title that feels big enough to go after Mercedes? That's going to be very Sky Blue, It's like, are we doing Anna Jay? Are we going with Layla Hirsch? Statlander just turned heel, like we mentioned in the chat. She just turned heel, and she's clearly setting up a feud with Willow, right? And isn't this something that we also wanted, right? Where we want stories for the women that aren't necessarily around titles. Well, then look, you've got Deanna and Thunder Rosa. You've had Statlander and Willow. And then you're going to have your championship titles going on. Like, there's a lot of good stuff happening right now. I don't know who's next though. I don't know who's next for Mercedes. If there had been some foresight, they would have been warming up someone on the side. But they'll probably do like a battle royal or something, or this new thing, the casino gauntlet match, and just, hey, here's a challenger, wee, kind of thing. And you're like, okay, it's kind of annoying, because then it might turn into a everyone gets a turn type of situation, not unlike what they do in WWE, which really, really does annoy me. Instead of building someone up, creating a challenger. But yes, and I mentioned it, Statlander did turn. Finally, I had speculated on it. I talked about it and make perfect sense. Ever since Statlander and Stokely were together, Statlander had been on a losing streak. Willow had been winning. It's probably some jealousy. There's something going on there. Stoke is siding with Statlander. Look, it's all good stuff. I'm interested to see where this is going to go. She attacked Willow after the match, in case you're wondering what the turn was. Took her out. Swerve Strickland defeated Christian Cage to retain the AEW World Championship. I like this match, but I was waiting for something more, and I think that for the type of match, because there's nothing wrong with the match, solid. I gave it a 3.5, solid, but I think that the audience was spent. They had seen so much stuff at this point. I think that for such a long show, the positioning of this match on the card was a detriment to the match. I think it didn't help. That being said, look, more interference, good stuff by both guys. Christian plays his game plan, Swerve does his. It's a 25-minute match. Now, again, I wish I had done my preview last week because I really wanted to share what I had in mind for this match. I had an expectation for this match. I think we are all in agreement. Are we all in agreement? I don't know. Look, this is my statement. I'm not going to throw you all into this. This is my statement and mine alone. And then you can tell me if you agree or not. I think right now, Swerve Strickland is unfortunately is suffering from a bit of a lack of credibility. I think everyone is excited for him. I think everyone agrees that he's a great champion, a great guy to be a world champion. Everyone is behind the fact that they're pushing something new, or at least, you know what I mean, everyone. I mean everyone with their head on screwed tight. But I think he has a credibility issue. I think and this is not necessarily his fault. We're talking about how he's being booked. He was, his feud with Christian, despite the fact that I think they did a phenomenal job building this feud, this match, wasn't necessarily exciting. Again, this is another one where people feel like it's a foregone conclusion. No way Christian is winning this, Swerve is not dropping this on his first defense, etc., etc. So I think that also hurt this match here. But I had a plan for this match. I had a booking pitch ready for this. And do you want to hear it? I'm going to give it to you. 12-minute match. Not 20, not 25, not 15. A 12-minute match. Swerve comes in and he has control of this match. He's walking the dog with Christian Cage. And I'm not talking a squash here, okay? He's not, obliterating him in like 3 minutes, 12 minutes. But for the first segment of this match, Christian Cage is trying shit. He's trying to escape. But Swerve, like he's supposed to be, is always one step ahead of him. Always one step ahead of him. Because he's Swerve Strickland, but he's also the world champion. He's the guy. Christian Cage fights back, but Swerve is just establishing, look, I'm a top guy. You're not. You were put into this spot by the evil whatchamacallums, the evil owners, the elite. You were put into this spot. You didn't own it, right? So I am fighting. You are under me, okay? Excuse me for a second. There we go. So there's the story should be here. Should essentially be here. Hey, Swerve is a legit top guy. Christian is not. Christian is a great wrestler, but he's not a top guy. I think that's something also we can agree on. He's not an upper TNT title level, absolutely fantastic, but world title, I wouldn't go so far. So he's in here. He was thrown into this. He's not a top guy. Okay. And the patriarchy cheat. That's how Christian Cage gets in control. See, I didn't know we were going to get interference for like 85% of the matches. So I'm like, well, we do a little bit here and it makes sense in the match. Christian Cage has no openings. So he's going to get his guys to interfere. And that's how he stays in control. Second segment of the match. And he does his usual shit. His great heel work, right? That's what he does. But the patriarchy get ejected, get thrown out. That's how Swerve gets back in control because he's a top guy. And he gets a big, dominant fucking win over Christian Cage. A guy who is high enough on the card for you to go, oh shit. He is really taking it to Christian Cage. And Christian Cage he basically can't do anything against this top guy in the company. There was no reason for this to go 25 minutes. 24:45 according to Cage Match. There was no reason for this match to go this long. And doing my plan would have added tremendous credibility to Swerve. Then people would be like, oh, fucking hell. Look at this guy. Christian Cage, like, he's not a schlub. It's not Scorpio Sky. It's Christian Cage. +20 minutes against Christian Cage is weird for a guy who is supposed to be the top guy of the company. It's really strange. And he's struggling right now. The perception of Swerve as a top guy is struggling. Booking should have given him a favor. And I think that a guy like Christian Cage would have listened to the pitch. I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Let's do it. I don't think he would have pulled that doesn't work for me, brother. I don't think he would have done that. I don't think. Could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Not often. Does happen. Nick Nutter, nice to see you, brother Nutter. Butter Nutter. It's very nice to see you. Yeah, we are live, pal, tonight. We're recording live for the first time in months. And we are going to wrap this up by talking about the Anarchy in the Arena match where the Elite defeated Bryan Danielson, FTR, and Darby Allin. So, I don't know. This was okay. This was fun. This was fun. But I don't know if it was good. It started off how I love these types of matches. Chaos. Everyone's around the arena. We're doing camera shots from one guy to one pairing to another pairing. We're doing camera shots everywhere. Flipping. I'm like, yeah. And they do the looping music, right? Excuse me. They do the looping music, and I love it. And they have the four screen. You know, you can see from 4 different cameras the action going on. I'm like, okay, this is what I like about these matches. The past 2 Anarchy in the Arenas, these were highlights for me, and we're starting off perfectly. It's chaos. It's nuts. Now the looping music. I said I'd mention it. I said I'd talk about it now. I thought it was, look, when they did it with Wild Thing, which I think, again, was last year, right? I thought that was tremendous. I was like, oh, did they break some equipment? Whatever. It was last year or the first one. I don't quite remember. And they were doing it for last wild thing, and I was like, this is great. The music just playing on loop, the chaos happening, and I thought that was great. They did it recently, and I'm drawing a blank. They did it on Dynamite, right? They did it on Dynamite. I can't remember in which context, but it wasn't a match. And I think it involved Danielson or whatever. And I said on the review, this is cool, but they can't do this too often. Otherwise, it starts to lose its sheen. You know, the unpredictability of that happening, if they do it too much, it's going to start becoming a thing. And when it becomes a thing, you expect it. And then eventually it doesn't become as cool because it's not surprising anymore. You're waiting for it, right? So they did the thing with Darby's music. Then the Young Bucks had it changed to their Succession theme. And then we flipped to Final Countdown, which I admittedly popped for. And I was like, okay, well, let's not do this for a long fucking time now. Let's pump the brake on this and do it when we least expect it now. And in a while. Because otherwise it just becomes a thing that you expect in the match and it's not as cool. Does that make sense? Maybe it's just me. And look, but outside of that, there is so much stuff happening and wacky stuff like Darby and the pile of garbage that Jack Perry, who has a scapegoat bus, which I rolled my eyes hard at. I was like, okay, WWE Junior, if you say so. He runs into the pile. And we're supposed to think that, oh, Darby's dead. Because he was hit by a bus recently, you know, all that stuff. But now he's dead for real. And I'm looking at that, and, and the thing is that we completely missed a shot of Darby being in the pile or on top of the pile. They were fighting around it, and the next thing you know, the bus is careening towards it, and I'm like, oh, he just ran through the pile of... And then commentary starts selling it. Commentary starts to sell it. Oh, no, Darby, I think he was in this. What? So they flubbed that. They fight up the ramp, and Darby comes out with a flamethrower and sets Jack Perry on fire, which is absolutely bonkers. Bonkers. I'll tell you one thing. History has taught me to never trust a professional wrestler with a firearm, with any kind of weapon that discharges anything. Like, we should be barely trusting Drew McIntyre with the sword. Why are we putting fire look. Good for Darby, who seemed to know how to use it. Look, Darby looked completely in place in a Borderlands game or in, the fucking Mad Max universe. I can't wait to see Furiosa, by the way. But he looked so, it worked. The insane grin that he had as he was lighting Jack Perry on fire. Matt Jackson swings an exploding chair at Dax. And then we get the tax Rainmaker, the sleeve with the tax by Okada. And I was like, Okada didn't bleed, huh? I thought he would. I thought he'd be like, hey, let's go. And then the sneakers with the tax, the pumps. And then they hang Darby upside down in the middle of the ring using the thing. And I didn't like, I was so nervous for that. I was like, oh, no, don't do. But they lifted, high, but not too high. High enough to eat a super kick in the face. And I know some people got concerned. Martha Hart's in the building and you're tying people up from the rafters. What the fuck, is that sensitive? I feel like all the bases were covered. I know a lot of people get really, really concerned about this, and some of them might actually be trolling a little bit. But, I'm sure they covered their bases. I'm sure they talked about it with Martha. I'm sure that Martha's okay with it. Martha was married to a pro wrestler. She understands this business. And she's still involved. She still does things with pro wrestling. It's fun. Some people think she's like this recluse that hates pro wrestling. She hates Vince. You got to get that through your skulls. She hates Vince McMahon. She hates WWE. Anyway. Some memorable sights in this match. Let's put it this way. It was fun. And Danielson at the end is fighting everyone off. But he eats everyone's finisher. And gets pinned by Jack Perry. I don't know. It's one of these matches which is really hard to rate. I'll tell you one thing. Out of the 3 Anarchy in the Arena matches, I can say with confidence that this was my least favorite of the 3. The 2 others, if I'm not mistaken, were both in my top 5 matches of the year for the past 2 years. I'm not sure this one's even going to crack my top 10. But I enjoyed it. But I felt it was a huge step down from the previous incarnations of this wild match. And maybe it was the perfect way to end this show, which I thought was a step down from typical AEW pay-per-views. But I didn't hate it. I liked it. I have quibbles. I have issues with the show. But when the standards are very high, I think it's okay to feel maybe a little disappointed, because the standards are so high. So that's my review of AEW. That's my review of AEW Double or Nothing 2024. I got nothing for you outside of that. It's a fine little match. It's a fine little match, a fine little card. But look, I think you should, if you haven't watched it, and you were waiting for me to guide you down what you should do next. Thank you. I'm flattered. Seek out Roddy versus Ospreay. That was my favorite match of the night. Seek out Willow versus Monet. Second favorite match of the night. Everything else is... And watch MJF's promo. Those were the 3 highlights of an otherwise very fine wrestling show. That's it. We will never speak of this show ever again, honestly, I don't think. And again, it's not even a bad show. That's the thing. I know a lot of people got upset that certain pundits were not as high on this show as other. I still saw the 10 out of 10 fantastic show, but it's not. It's a good little show. Yeah, it's a little long. That's why I can't sit down and recommend it. I can't, if it was 3 hours, I'd be like, look, just sit down and watch it. You'll have a nice little time and you'll go home and never think of it again. But there's too much stuff, too much nonsense, too much, not enough really great matches for this to be something that you should invest in. There's really 3 things to watch on the show, and the rest you can absolutely skip over. There you go. That's my review And that's how we are going to wrap up the weekly wrestling inspection. Okay, scrap that. As we are recording live on this Tuesday night, WWE NXT is happening right now. And it would appear as though Ethan Page has shown up on NXT saying that he has taken out Oro Mensah. Good for him. He took out people. He's talking to Trick Williams. Isn't it funny that the lower card of AEW is ending up on NXT? I think that's fucking hilarious. And Jordan Grace. I mean, no, but honestly, like, good for Ethan Page, right? Right? Go get paid, brother. Move territories. Try things out. Good for him. Honestly, good for him. It's dope that he has this kind of mobility. Take advantage of it. He attacked Trick Williams. Okay. Good for him. And Jordan Grace showed up because The Rock's daughter said so. And she's going to be challenging Roxanne Perez in NXT. I think we all saw this coming. Jordan doing a stint in NXT. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I am very curious as to what's going on with WWE and Impact. This is peculiar. Not unprecedented for NXT to do this, but this is very interesting. Again, we know that Jordan Grace was being set up for something with WWE. It was obvious. This is where we're at. I'll have more thoughts on it next week. I got to wrap this up because my throat is killing me. Listen, I want to thank everyone who joined me today, back again live on Tuesday nights for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show live recording on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. I appreciate it tremendously, folks. If I can bother you for a subscription, if this is your first time here, or a like on the video, that would be tremendous. Otherwise, thank you everyone for watching on demand on YouTube or for listening to this on your favorite podcast application, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. I appreciate you a tremendous deal as well. Look, this went well. I'm glad. Let's do it. Let's come back next week. Let's do it again next Tuesday evening for another live recording. I will be back Thursday for the Dynamite review. But in the meantime, everyone, I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Where are my commands? There they are. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thanks again, folks. I'll see you next time.